Let's talk about AI-ready projects and specifically today the Codebase. So you're probably in this video because you are struggling or you're trying to find a way how to optimize your project or Codebase for AI. Over the past year, I was always hitting a wall in terms of how much AI can do for the project due to many different reasons, because a lot of Codebases are dragging from the past where we were not working with AI, right? And many times there was a problem of, okay, why the AI is not working that well, why it's not outputting the good results, why we cannot rely on it more than we could. And this is not a problem in specifically my case. Of course, this is industry-wide. So many companies right now struggling with it and trying to optimize so that AI can do more stuff and free up the developers. And yeah, so I managed to more or less find a good solution that works, and I started to retrofit it into this presentation. And yeah, this is what I will share today. First thing, how AI agents see the world, and specifically, let's say we will take an example of Claude Code. When you first launch it, it is a black box. It doesn't see, it doesn't have any vision, it doesn't know what is happening. It's just the empty context, right? There is no references. And the only thing that it can do to start navigating is it can use the commands that are available, for example, cd or a tree or cd file. It can do commands like grep to search, for example, across the different files, across this code space, so the project itself, to find specific references. So, for example, you are asking to develop for your navigation system, you want to improve the positioning, and you're saying this, okay, we need to improve this positioning, I want to use this coordinate system. And what it will start to do, it will try to do the grep, and okay, so I'm asked to do this, like something with positioning, so I will try to search everything that is available for positioning, which is how it will start to figure out what's happening. And the drawback here is, of course, the naming, for example, can be wrong. Many different things can basically happen. So what can you do about it? So there is an exception for that, which is a README file or Claude MD files. If we're looking at the Claude Code, which is a standard or more or less the best version of agents in the current months, I would even say. I would not rely on the next months or a year. I'm not predicting this anymore. But we will think about, for now, Claude Code and Cursor. So what it can rely, or what it will do most likely, is look at the README file if you didn't create a Claude MD, and it will look at the Claude MD file if it was already created. So this is basically a files that you can give the high-level overview of your projects that will be injected into the agent itself. So once it starts, this data will be automatically injected into the context, which means that, well, README it will not, but it can read because it's probably the first step that it's trained to do. So yeah, basically this will help to understand high level what is happening in the project itself. And yeah, README, so it's kind of good to do the same way you do for other people. So you can imagine that you have a new joiner, and the README should mirror what is needed to start launch as easy as possible without any struggling. So you need to optimize the system to have really working and easy to start projects so that AI agents can do this as well. And yeah, speaking of course, is the cursor rules that you can also add in a cursor. And this is kind of the same thing as Claude Code Claude MD file, which you can also specify when to apply in which files. Speaking of Claude MD, actually, you can also do it on a high level, and then you can also nest it into specific folders. We'll get there later, but you can also have multiple Claude MD files in your project describing specific logic. So when it searches this specific folder, it can also inject the context right away. So yeah, and we are actually coming to this point specifically, why it's nice to have this Claude MD files in specific folders. And there are many different project structures for the code base, and I will even show you this diagram. Here we have basically different types of code space architecture, and one of them, so we are looking at maintenance, token efficiency, AI readiness, complexity, and benefits. And if we look at, of course, a single file is the winner, but let's be honest, like nobody will handle the single file. I once had a project that had 12,000 lines of Node.js code, which was not maintainable. So I would not even rely for the AI. So of course, with one single file, you will have a lot less, a lot more, like you can fit the whole thing, but it also means that if it's too big, you will not be able to fit in the context. So yeah, so of course, microservices, there's pros and cons. The main one is the vertical slice. So how it works is basically you are structuring your repository, your code base, into features. So you have a feature of, instead of like having like services, 200, 300 services, models, 300 models, you are doing it in a feature way. So you have a system that, again, let's go to the navigation. Let's say you have locations, one folder with everything, with models, with services, views, whatever it is, everything is there. Then you have another one with customers, let's say, another one with other stuff. So you're basically grouping them more into the slices, so slices of features. And yeah, it is a really great way instead of the other alternatives, because if we go back to how the agents are viewing, is they can use a CD or they will find a file related to a specific feature, and what they will try to do sometimes is to list all of the files in the repo, and there of course you will have 200 more files that are not related. So grouping them into features really helps. So yeah, so we just spoke basically scoped features, user profile, for example, you put it into the one. It reduces the context itself. So when you are just working on something with AI, it will look up specific part. It doesn't need to go into other folders. It's quite tightly coupled. And yeah, easier navigation, of course. And for frontend is actually, I will not go too deep into it, but Atomic Design, I think you can have a look. It's good alternative for the front-end side. So you are kind of creating these specific parts that are self-describable, and then you can combine them. Another thing is references inside your code. So I didn't go into documentation too much, so it will be another video, but you can inject the references. Of course, there is no specific way to do it, but instead of saying like implement the authentication flow, what you can do is you can say C docs authmd, for example. This implies, of course, that you have documentation inside the code base. Of course, you can also add the links that then the agent can look through. But what I'm basically saying is it finds a file, it can look through the content, it sees the reference to docs. Oh, okay, so it can also go and look up this document, and then it will have more understanding around this feature. Circling back to languages and verbosity, this was the first and the clearest sign or like discovery for me, is that the more verbose the language, the more context you need to fit into the AI agent, which for now is like 200 to 1 million, right? And that's not the main thing, right? It's one thing that you are putting a lot of context, but the business logic of this, or like business value of this code base, if you take the Java with this old setters and getters, is like the logic of the data object is like 10% of what is written in the code. So you're basically injecting not only a lot of context, but a lot of garbage, like the stuff that will not be really useful for the AI and for you and for business. So more context means less business logic inside it, and of course less productive AI output, because it also needs to look through all of this garbage that the less stuff you put into it, which is on point, the better. So, and this implies for, let's say, Java, is to use Kotlin over Java. In many cases, I found it a lot more simpler, a lot more shorter, because you have a lot of syntax sugar that saves you time. Maybe worth looking at the latest Java versions that are simplifying some stuff, but I will still prefer Kotlin. Python is the best winner in my opinion for anything. All of the libraries, everything is super short, super on point, a lot easier to read, maintain for yourself as well, and AI can a lot easier understand what's happening there. And this one is like 50-50, let's say, but JavaScript over TypeScript, I would say, is good decision. Of course, not in every case, but this one is like on a border, let's say. Going from languages to the libraries and frameworks, you should take the most well-known, most famous, let's say, frameworks, because the more famous, the more relevant, the more up-to-date it is, the more developers, the more content around it, the more blog articles, everything, right? And this whole thing was pushed to train the AI, so Claude, whatever, Gemini, whatever it is, and it means that it knows it more, it knows a lot more better than others. And this is, I guess, good example with Svelte, which was like super freshly developed, and I think some other YouTube channel was not happy with the way the AI agent is developing it. And it makes sense because it's so fresh that it was not really used. Of course, there is another way to go around it. If you really need a framework, there is services like Context 7 that you can kind of inject it into the agent to telling, hey, this is how n8n works. You take the n8n, for example, you push it, and this is how it should work. Good way, but of course that means that you have less context for the for your development. And yeah, of course, be careful with the freshest version. If there is some major update of, let's say, React, many features might not, like many agents will not be up to date with it. So it will kind of, you might need to supplement the context. And of course, speaking of testing, the unit tests work perfectly. There is nothing really, I would say, bad about it. The structuring can still be the same, like feature-based. Behavior-driven development, if you do it, and it's actually a pretty good way to do it with agent to kind of bridge the business world with the technical. And here you should pick the most known languages that AI can understand and write, which is hierarchy. So this one is just easy choice. Instead of writing something for yourself, this will be more, AI will be more understandable. Feature-oriented tests. So you try to test the feature, pack them together also in a logical chunk, in a logical folder, then AI will easier to understand what you're trying to do and what it needs to change, basically. And that's actually it. So thanks for watching. You can subscribe if you want, of course. And this is, I think, first video about AI-ready projects. So the next one will be about documentation, most likely.